Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Tuesday Livecast. Hope everybody had a great week, and we're going to have a lot of fun today. Today, I have a special guest on, a very impressive young man by the name of Kevin Corbett. And Kevin has started a fund investing in primarily defaulted notes, seconds, and has been very, very successful in his raise and putting this thing together. And I just wanted to give everybody on the live cast the benefit of hearing from Kevin how he did it, and maybe shoot some information your way that would help you if you have any intention at all of raising some capital, and think that the way Kevin did it might be a beneficial way for you to do it. So Kevin, welcome. By the way, Kevin is in Southern California. Currently, he's had some graduated from USC and has had a couple of different jobs, and is now in graduate school at UCLA, getting an MBA. And thank you, Kevin, for coming on, and welcome.
Thanks, Ron. Happy to be here.
Great. Okay, so I think what the way that we'll just handle this today is, I know that when I talk to people, they have certain questions, and we've done this several times, and sometimes take a lot of stuff for granted. And so I think what I'll do is I'm just going to try to ask you some of the questions that we get, and let you expand on your experiences with them. So I guess first is, just why did you decide to start a fund, to manage a fund, and to do it with defaulted mortgages?
So for everybody watching, I've known Ron for a long time, probably since I was 8 years old. His wife, Dolores, actually taught at my elementary school, so I've known the family for a long time. And a few years back, myself and my family invested kind of on a one-off basis into notes with Ron, and saw pretty amazing returns. And, we thought this was great. We're getting good returns, and it's completely passive. So those were some features of the investment that I was really drawn to. And about a year and a half ago, I started working with Main Street, for Main Street, and learned a lot more about the business, how the workouts are done, what the different exit strategies are, and decided, hey, why not set up our own fund with my family, and reach out to some close family and friends, and give them the opportunity to get involved in something like this. So that's kind of why we decided to start a fund.
So when you decided to start, Kevin, can you give us some kind of insight onto why you picked the, well, first of all, how did you go about putting your fund together? What kind of were you concerned at all about SEC regulations? And if so, how did you go about starting your fund? What made you decide in the direction of how you were going to start it?
Certainly couldn't have done this without your guidance and the guidance of Tyler. The first step in starting the fund was definitely to find a attorney to talk to, because it's not something you can just start reaching out or sending an email blast to anyone, say, hey, come invest in notes, we'll buy them for you and you can be part of this fund. Well, you had to set up a structure, and to do that, we wanted to talk to an attorney. The second thing is we wanted to decide what that structure would look like. So we said we wanted to raise $1 million. We wanted to sell shares at $50,000 a piece. We wanted to promise, or not promise, but offer a preferred return of 12% with a cap of 15% annually.
Before you go any farther, how did you see the reception to that payout? Were your investors satisfied with the 12% pref and 15%, or was it a hard sell for you?
Honestly, I mean, I don't know where else you can find returns like that with an investment that's completely passive. I felt when we were discussing what return to offer our investors from a preferred basis, you do have to offer some level of risk premium because this isn't something people are very familiar with. It's a little foreign to most. So it takes some explaining. Some investors wanted to see how the notes are actually worked out, and we were able to provide examples of different exit strategies to talk them through that on where these returns were coming from. Others trusted us a little bit more readily, and that was a function of the people we reached out to. So we wanted to limit the number of investors, which is why we set our share price at $50,000 a piece. You can obviously go a little bit lower than that, but you're going to have to deal with more investors and questions, and we wanted to just reach out to people we really trusted. So these were friends of my family that kind of knew we knew what we were doing and trusted us, and others needed a little bit more convincing, and we would kind of get into the nitty-gritty of how to work these things out.
Okay, so you went out then and you found an attorney to help you put this together, and what I think your attorney is Arizona based. Is that correct? Because that's where your parents are, and it's nice to get outside of California. But so you went to an attorney, and did he give you some advice on what program to use, or how did you decide on what you were going to do as far as Security and Exchange Commission is concerned?
Right. So a lot of that guidance was from Main Street. We have a couple different exemptions from the SEC in doing a private placement, and by
private we mean you're doing it with friends, relatives, people that you know, as opposed to advertising it and doing it to the public. So let's define that. This is a private placement. You're not out there advertising, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We're not out there advertising. So we decided to go with an exemption 506B, which there are a couple different exemptions, about 4 of them that you would want to talk to your attorney about or Main Street about. And the 506B is unlimited amount of funds that you can raise. There is a limit on the number of non-accredited investors that can participate, which is 35. And just to define what an accredited investor is, it's somebody that has $1 million net worth outside of their primary residence, or I believe $250,000 income a year, or $350,000 with a spouse. So that's an accredited investors. Most of our investors are accredited, but you can have up to 35 that aren't. And depending on how much you want to raise or who you want to be involved, there are different levels of information that you need to share with the SEC. And to do that, you fill out a Form D and then send it into them. And that guidance was from a lot from Main Street, but also from the attorney we sought out and had those conversations with.
So you did a 506B, which allows you to raise money from friends and relatives, family, friends, without registering with the SEC. Is that correct? I mean, that doesn't require you to go to the SEC as if you were going to go out and sell stock to the general public.
Correct.
Okay.
All we did was, as part of the paperwork we had our investors that were interested fill out. We had a questionnaire that kind of, they would proclaim themselves to be accredited or non-accredited through that questionnaire, and that satisfied our concerns for having the relevant information if the SEC ever wanted to look into our fund.
Okay. And I think that the structure that you guys went with was an LLC in Arizona. Is that correct?
Right. So myself and my parents formed one LLC that was the fund manager of another LLC that's the actual fund. And that fund is the Keynote Select Investment Fund. And so the managers of that fund were the sole Class A member, and then we would sell Class B membership to our investors at $50,000 a unit. So that's how we kind of structured it.
Okay, so Class A shares are the management shares, and Class B shares are the 12% preferred shareholders with a 15% cap, and then the A shareholders get what remains, if any, after that 15% is paid out. Is that correct?
That's correct. And to add on to that, one of the ways that we were able to raise the $1 million so quickly, and we did so in about 3 months, the reason we were able to do that so quickly in part is because we did not take any fees up front as the managers of the fund. We said we don't make any money until our Class B members do, at least make their 12%, and then there was some profit that we hoped to make on the back end, and that's how we structured it. And it really gave an extra element of trust when talking to those shareholder or those potential investors.
Yeah, I do know of funds that are in this particular industry even that require management fee, and the management fee and some of them are quite stiff. So I think it kind of is a real incentive for people to invest with you when you say, we're not making any money until you get your 12%. That gives them some confidence that you're not ripping the fund off, and that you're pretty confident that you're going to make some money because you're not going to work for nothing. So I think that was a great idea. So Kevin, from the start of your decision to start a fund, not the capital raise, but from the time that you started the kind of the incubation of the idea that you wanted to start a $1 million fund, can you give us a couple of ideas? First of all, how long did it take you to get into the position that you could start raising money? What was that time period? And could you kind of give us a step-by-step approach of what you went through to get there?
Yeah, so I believe we started talking about it, my family and I, back in, I want to say August or September of 2014.
So less than a year ago.
Less than a year ago.
Okay.
And the major first step to take was to go to an attorney and draft up all the necessary documents. And those were templates that Main Street at Tyler shared with me, because obviously we've done a number of funds with the company before. So I kind of already had that jumping off point where I knew what documents I needed to create and tailor to my specifications as a fund manager. And then it was just a matter of going to the attorney and saying, this is what I want, this is what we want to include as far as those specifications. And then it was a little bit of a back and forth between drafting those documents, and then I would say middle of December, so about 3 to 4 months, and we were ready to go. And then after the holidays in January, we started reaching out to people and raising the money.
Okay, so it was a 4-month process, let's say, for you to go through the process with your managing your attorney, let's say. Do you think that do you have any idea what it would have cost had you not had Main Street and Tyler? By the way, if people that are on don't know Tyler's an attorney. He's also part owner of Main Street Capital Partners, and he's put together a number of private placement memorandums for us and done a number of filings for us, and has been very helpful to other people. Do you have any idea, Kevin, how much it would have cost you to do that if there was been no assistance from Tyler?
Only from the estimates that I got from Tyler, and just generally some understanding from my parents and working with attorneys before, something like what we created.
No attorney jokes, please.
I'll leave those to you.
All right.
We created 2 LLCs. We had about 5 other documents we created, and I would estimate about 20 to 25,000 is what that would cost had I not already had those templates that Tyler shared. And we ended up spending $8,400 all in terms of getting the entire fund and all the necessary documents set up.
Okay, so somebody that was just going out and maybe not have an association with us who are willing to share that. I know that you can go to some seminars. There are some in Southern California that a couple of attorneys will put on for $5,000 to entice you to do a private placement with them, to do a memorandum. But one of the good points that we have is that we're willing to help you do this to save legal costs, and I guess you're proof in the pudding that I don't think that Phoenix area is much different than Southern California in the cost of attorneys. You might be able to save money in some other areas of the country, but I don't think Phoenix and Southern California are, anybody would say that they're bargain houses, bargain territories when it comes to legal expenses. And $8,000 to do this and to get you up and running, I think is a pretty fair cost. So okay, so now we are in a position where you have your private placement memorandum, and now take me through the steps that you utilized to raise $1 million in 3 months' time. I think people just really have a hard time believing that you were able to do that. Can you run us through how you did it? And I know that you prepared like a commercial that I thought was very, very well done. But take us from the process of introducing yourself to that investor and how you convinced them that it would be a good idea to get involved with you.
Yeah, so what you're alluding to is one of the strategies I took. I created a 13-minute YouTube video that kind of covered, what is the note industry, why is it a good investment, and how they could get involved in our fund. And the one thing that we wanted to make sure of is that we were not soliciting investments, because that's something that's prohibited by the SEC. You can't just send an email blast out with the link to your video or say, hey, we're selling shares, this is the price, this is your preferred return. You have to be cautious going into it. So we identified a list of investors or potential investors that we thought were accredited, people that trusted us and we would trust, and this is who we want to reach out to. We probably had a list of 20, 25 people. And then depending on our level of relationship with them, either myself or my dad would reach out to them and say, hey, we're investing in notes, no pressure. We've seen some great returns, and we're setting up this fund. If you want to get involved, happy to tell you more about it, but no pressure. And we also sent an email to others with similar language. And then based on their response, if they wanted to see the video, we would send them that video to give them kind of a broader overview of the opportunity. And then one by one, if they had questions, we'd set up individual calls and go through examples of exit strategies and answer any questions they had. And honestly, it did not take more than 1 or 2 calls for most investors to get them excited about this opportunity, because of the returns that we were offering and because of the passive nature. And a couple of them used their IRA money to get involved as well. And we had a pretty streamlined process through a company called Polycomp to handle that type of investing option as well.
Gonna have to charge Polycomp for that plug there, I think. We have several people.
Custodians out there.
We have several people that are with Polycomp, and they're very happy with it. So, so did you have anybody, Kevin, that was not a family, friend or relative, or somebody that you already knew that approached you to be a part of the fund at all? Or is it exclusively with people you already knew?
We did have some people that were kind of second degree connections, I would call them. And we were definitely open to having them involved, but we did not hard sell anybody.
Okay, can you kind of give me an idea, if somebody did come to you and approached you with an idea that they'd like to get involved with you, how would you handle that person as far as making sure you didn't violate any of the SEC requirements with your private placement?
So the first thing I'd have them do is sign a non-disclosure agreement. The second thing is have them fill out our investor questionnaire that kind of dictates whether or not they're accredited and what level of comfort that they would have in this sort of investment, based on their discretionary income. And from that point, we would send them the business plan, have some more conversations. If we felt comfortable as fund managers having them participate, then we would send them the private placement. But it's really, we don't want to force anybody into this. We wanted people that were excited about being into it, because our fund is such that it's a 5-year window and a 3-year lock on capital. So we didn't want to basically hold a gun to anybody's head. We wanted them to be there, and we wanted to trust them, and vice versa. So those were the type of people that we wanted to have in our fund. It ended up being mostly people that were pretty close to us. Okay.
I'm glad you brought up that point that you did about a lock in capital. Did you put any escape plans in there, that if somebody absolutely needed to get out, was there a way for them to get out? Did you have that in your fund at all?
Yes, that's part of the private placement memorandum. The reason for the 3-year lock in capital is we want to reinvest capital as many times over as possible to maximize the return. However, if there is an emergency and then they need their capital back, we would need about 3 months notice, 2 to 3 months notice, depending. And then we would get them their investment back plus a small penalty and it's staggered throughout that 3 years. So it's a little bit higher at first, and then second year's less, and third year's even less.
Good idea. Yeah, good idea. Just to make a point there, the reason that typically a penalty is in place if they pull their capital out too soon is that you try to stay fully invested. You don't have a lot of cash sitting around, because then your returns are gone, correct? And if they need to sell, if they need their money out, there's only one alternative for you, and that's to sell. And so now you're put in a position where you've got to sell, and you're probably selling at a discount to get their funds. So there has to be, it probably is a good idea to have a little bit of a penalty there so that you can sell and not get crushed. The other thing is you want to give people an opportunity to get out, because you never know what's going to happen. So that's just another plus for the kind of fund that you're opening. All right. So then at what point did you give them your video?
It was after they signed. It was after we made initial contact and they voiced interest in the video. We didn't send it to anybody that didn't want it. They had to ask us for it, and typically we wanted that in writing through an email or something. Then we would have them sign our non-disclosure agreement, an investor questionnaire, and at that point we would send them the link to the video, and it gave them, you know, as I mentioned, a brief overview of the note industry and where the opportunity came from, but also details about what we were offering in our fund. And so that's information we wanted to guard preliminary until we knew that they were serious and everything was copacetic.
Okay. So you have a 13-minute video. One thing that, you know, we certainly are willing to provide examples of our non-disclosure agreement, our investor questionnaire, our information that we get from people. We certainly would be willing to supply private placement memorandums for people to take to their attorney to see if they could duplicate. Would you be willing to share your video if people wanted to see that video and model something after it, and they emailed us? Would you be willing to share that video with them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I would. You know, it's a good model, I think, if you want to create something similar and generate interest. You know, happy to share it.
Okay, great. That's I think it's very, very well done. And I think even if people are not looking to do a video or to do a presentation like that, it's full of information to help them understand the note business. So so Kevin would be very happy to share that with you, and I would encourage you to ask for it. So Kevin, is there any other pointers that you can give before we wrap this up on somebody that is looking to raise money? Do you think $1 million is a good place to kind of set a goal? Would you set a goal any lower than that or higher than that? If you're going to do it again, what would you do? And just kind of in closing.
Yeah, I would say it's you know, it's whatever you're comfortable with. It depends on the person that's doing the fund. We picked $1 million as our goal line, and $50,000 you know, units, because we wanted to limit our investor base to just a few trusted friends and family, you know, as a way to kind of make sure our time wasn't spread out, you know, too much. So, you know, if we wanted to go a little bit higher in the future and we're comfortable after doing our first fund, maybe we'd set it a little bit higher and lower our entry point, perhaps. I don't know, but it's really, you want to tailor it to how much time you want to spend on this. But honestly, just in closing, a lot of this from a distance sounds intimidating to start a fund, but I'm 28 years old, and I had very limited information about note industry, about the note business before starting this. Got some great guidance from Ron and Tyler and Chrissy and the entire team. And the next thing that starting a fund is really just taking that first step and talking to an attorney and getting going. It's not as difficult as it seems. And from a fund manager's perspective, it's pretty passive going forward. You pick a servicer like Main Street, and they do the operational side, And as a fund manager, you're doing accounting and quarterly reporting to your investors, and also investment and reinvestment decisions going forward. But limited involvement, it's a great position to be in.
Okay, Kevin, thank you very, very much. A couple of things that I'd like to, I don't know how many people are on here that are in California, and Kevin's structure is an LLC, but Kevin's structure of LLC is an Arizona LLC. And for those of you in California now, I'm not an accountant. I'm not giving you accounting advice, but I would like you to speak with your accountant, because in this business, the California tax on an LLC is onerous. And the problem is, I know that most people know that it's an $800 a year, no matter if you have a profit of 1 penny, but that $800 escalates, and it escalates based on gross sales, not profits. So the LLC tax in California, when you're in the note business, and let's say that you sell 3 notes during the year and they're $100,000 notes, you've exceeded the first level of tax at $250,000. So get some good legal and accounting advice before you start your structure, and we're here to help. If anybody wants to get involved in raising capital, Tyler is always available to answer any questions for you. Very experienced at it. Has done a number of private placement memorandums. Now, while Tyler can't be your attorney, because there'd be a conflict of interest, he's certainly there to help you with your attorney and visit with your attorney about how to put these together in the most good way for you as the fund manager, to protect you and make sure that you're not violating any securities laws and so on. There is one question came up during the week that that I want to answer. It's nice to get questions from the people that are watching this, and we're going to have a live cast, not next week, but the week after, on bankruptcy. We'll get Sabrina on, and we'll cover bankruptcy very thoroughly. But the question that was asked of us over the week was, are you anxious about the prospect of borrower bankruptcy or the lack of cooperation on your notes? I can't say that we're anxious. We don't like to see bankruptcy, but I don't think we're anxious. There's a certain thing about bankruptcy that people that are new to this business don't understand. First of all, a private individual, a person, when they declare bankruptcy, typically they declare bankruptcy in a Chapter 7 or a Chapter 13. A Chapter 7 is basically wipe out their debt. And in a Chapter 7, currently, the lien is not stripped off of secured loans. So if somebody declares a Chapter 7, you are, as a creditor, not allowed to go after the person, but you're still allowed to go after the property. So again, I'm not an accountant, but I'm just telling you what we've learned through experience and so on. And you need to check with a competent bankruptcy attorney. On a Chapter 13, there is something called a lien strip, and that's where there is no equity for your second. Let's say that you buy let's say you buy a note that has an unpaid principal balance of $50,000. It's a second. There's a $150,000 first, and the property is only worth $90,000. So your second has no equity. The trustee of the bankruptcy can strip your lien. They can remove the lien, and you no longer have a secured debt. That when that happens, you do not have a secured debt anymore, but you still have a debt. You're still owed the money. It's just not secured by the real estate anymore, and you wouldn't be allowed to foreclose. That is a big concern to a lot of people, especially those that buy seconds. One of the facts that people aren't aware of is that only about 10% or less of the bankruptcies in Chapter 13 ever get to completion. The way that the bankruptcy is handled, the trustee puts together a payment plan. They try to pay all these unsecured creditors, which you would have become if you were an unsecured, if they stripped your lien. And in reality, the person that declared bankruptcy, the borrower, can't make those payments. And so their bankruptcy is dismissed. So during that 3 to 5 year period that the trustee has set up a plan for, they fall out of that plan. And now you're right back to square one. You have a secured debt, even though it was stripped in bankruptcy. If they fail, then if they fail in completing their payment schedule or their payment plan, and they fall out of bankruptcy, you are now secured again in your debt. And only about 10% or less actually go through and are discharged. Discharge meaning that it's a successful completion. So bankruptcy does not scare us, or we don't get anxious about it. Our philosophy is that if a homeowner declares bankruptcy, now we have somebody to talk to. We can at least talk to the trustee, and we can talk to the bankruptcy attorney. You're not allowed to talk to the homeowner anymore while they're in bankruptcy, but you can talk to the homeowner's attorney, and you can talk to the trustee. And a lot of times when they find out what we're willing to do, they will cooperate with us. So we're not afraid of bankruptcy. Our philosophy is it just might take longer. So we have to be prepared for that. And in addition to that, it might take longer, gives us time for the property values to increase, and equity may be created during that time that we're avoiding contact with a homeowner. So now, are we concerned about the lack of communication with the borrower? Yes, that's always a concern, but there are policies and procedures in place that we use strategically and religiously to communicate with the homeowner. And that's the whole secret to this business, is communicating with the homeowner and making it possible and available for them to stay in their home. So one thing I would like to talk about before we get off, and that is our boot camp. We're having a 3-day seminar in Orlando, Florida on May 17th, 18th, and 19th. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We will cover everything that we do. This is a seminar that teaches you the business as we do it. We show you all our tools, all of our secrets. Nothing's left uncovered. And it will be a very intense 3 days. I spend a day talking about notes in general, including seller finance, firsts, seconds, defaulted, performing, and so on. We learn to use a calculator that day. And the next day, Tyler, actually, part of the first day, Tyler will talk about Dodd-Frank, about putting private placement memorandums together, about the legislation that he sees, about the legal environment, and so on. And then Sabrina will cover bankruptcy, workouts, foreclosure, post foreclosure, show you how and why we do what we do in our workouts section. Ingrid, our executive vice president in servicing, will cover the legalities of the servicing, compliance issues, and so on. and then Chrissy will go through with you every tool that we use in our business, from the accounting to workouts to skip tracing and so on, credit and everything else that we use, all the tools that we have at our disposal, we'll share with you. No one has ever left one of these that hasn't said that it was extremely thorough. We do not try to sell you anything. We offer no coaching. We're not trying to sign you up for a $15,000 to $25,000 coaching program. When you attend, you'll get everything that we have. So I encourage you. There's one in May in Florida, Orlando, Florida, one in July in San Francisco, and August is in Texas, and October in Boston. So please go to the website notemogul.com, NOTEMOGUL.com, and you can learn about the seminar. We encourage you to come if you want to get into this business. So again, thank you guys very, very much for attending. And Kevin, thank you so much for spending your time with us today and sharing all the valuable information that you've picked up just in doing the business. So I'm proud of you for what you've done. I'm impressed with the efforts that you've put together, and I know that this is just the first of a number of funds that you'll do. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Ron. Anytime.
Bye.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
All right.
Bye.